Many people assume avoidant individuals stay emotionally attached because of intense chemistry or dramatic emotional highs. But what if the deeper reason is something much quieter? What if the connection grows because of how someone behaves during ordinary moments when life is calm, predictable, and emotionally steady? Over time, many relationship observations have pointed toward an interesting pattern. It is important to understand from the beginning that this is not a universal rule or a fixed truth. Human relationships are far too complex to fit into simple categories, and every person is different. These are recurring patterns that have been noticed across many relationship experiences, not guarantees that apply to everyone. There will always be exceptions. Your own experiences and judgment matter more than any general observation. Still, when looking closely at avoidant individuals in long-term relationships, a familiar theme often appears. Many seem to become deeply connected to partners who share similar emotional qualities. Even when they describe why they committed to someone, they often mention characteristics that made them feel emotionally comfortable rather than emotionally overwhelmed. Stay with me, because the first quality surprises many people and helps explain why some relationships quietly become lasting, while others struggle from the beginning. One of the strongest qualities is emotional balance. Avoidant individuals often become overwhelmed when emotions feel unpredictable, intense, or constantly escalating. Because of this, they frequently feel safer with someone who remains emotionally grounded. This does not mean the person hides their feelings or avoids emotion altogether. It means they can experience strong emotions without letting those emotions completely control their behavior. They know how to calm themselves before reacting. During disagreements, they pause, think, and respond instead of immediately raising the emotional intensity. That steady approach creates an environment where closeness does not automatically feel stressful or overwhelming. Over time, that emotional consistency builds trust. Another quality that often stands out is clear and honest communication. Avoidant individuals usually struggle with emotional pressure, hidden expectations, or manipulative communication. They often connect more comfortably with someone who simply says what they mean. If something feels wrong, it is expressed directly. If they need support, they ask without turning it into a test or expecting someone to guess. There are no silent treatments, emotional games, or attempts to create guilt. That kind of straightforward communication removes unnecessary pressure and creates a space where both people understand each other more clearly. But that's only the beginning, because another trait quietly strengthens emotional safety over time. Another pattern often involves a person's general outlook on life and relationships. Many avoidant individuals seem naturally drawn toward partners who have a balanced and hopeful perspective. This does not mean they ignore problems or pretend everything is perfect. Instead, they approach challenges with the belief that healthy relationships can grow through patience, understanding, and shared effort. Even when discussing difficult experiences, they do not automatically assume every relationship is destined to fail. They acknowledge struggles while still believing that meaningful connection is possible. This quiet optimism can have a powerful effect. Many avoidant individuals carry deep beliefs that closeness eventually leads to disappointment, conflict, or a loss of independence. A partner who consistently demonstrates a calmer, healthier view of connection slowly introduces a different emotional experience. They do not force change through arguments or constant reassurance. Instead, they model another way of experiencing closeness through their everyday actions. Little by little, this steady example can make emotional connection feel less threatening and more natural. Don't miss this part, because the next quality often influences trust in ways people rarely notice. Another meaningful trait is handling disagreements with respect and emotional awareness. Avoidant individuals often become uncomfortable when they feel embarrassed, criticized, or corrected in front of other people. Public criticism can quickly trigger defensiveness or emotional withdrawal. Partners who tend to build stronger long-term connections usually understand the importance of timing, privacy, and tone. If something needs to be discussed, they wait for a private moment instead of addressing it publicly. They speak honestly without trying to humiliate or embarrass the other person. For example, instead of pointing out a mistake during a group conversation, they may quietly bring it up later in a calm and respectful way. This approach allows honesty without damaging dignity. That balance is often deeply appreciated because it reduces emotional pressure while preserving trust. Feeling respected during difficult conversations makes it much easier for someone to stay emotionally open instead of instinctively pulling away. What comes next may be the most important insight of all, because it ties every one of these patterns together. When these qualities are viewed as a whole, a clear picture begins to emerge. Avoidant individuals often feel most comfortable with people who bring emotional steadiness, honest communication, a hopeful outlook, and respectful conflict resolution into the relationship. None of these qualities force closeness. Instead, they create space where connection can grow naturally without overwhelming either person. That sense of emotional safety often becomes the foundation for lasting attachment. At the same time, it is important not to turn these observations into strict rules. No relationship is perfect. No one consistently responds with complete patience or emotional balance every single day. People make mistakes, emotions change, relationships continue to evolve over time. The purpose of understanding these patterns is not to encourage anyone to reshape themselves to fit another person's attachment style. It is to recognize behaviors that support healthy communication, mutual respect, and long-term emotional stability. The more clearly you understand these interaction patterns, the easier it becomes to recognize relationships that feel balanced, genuine, and sustainable. The final insight is the one many people overlook. Lasting connection is rarely built through pressure or emotional intensity. More often, it grows through consistency, understanding, and the quiet sense of safety that develops one interaction at a time. Respect matters. If a correction needs to happen, do it with kindness. There is no need to embarrass someone or make them feel small. One pattern that often appears in healthy relationships with avoidant individuals is the value placed on genuine effort. Not in every situation, and certainly not with every person, but there is a consistent theme where effort becomes more meaningful than immediate results. In many lasting relationships, you hear statements such as, "I really appreciate how hard you're trying," or "I can see the effort you're putting in," or "It means a lot that we're both working on this together." The attention is not placed on achieving perfection overnight or fixing every issue immediately. Instead, the focus stays on progress, intention, and a willingness to keep showing up. That difference is more powerful than it may first appear. When someone's effort is consistently recognized, they are less likely to feel constantly judged by what they have not yet accomplished. Instead, they feel appreciated for the steps they are taking. That simple recognition often lowers emotional defensiveness and encourages them to remain engaged instead of withdrawing. Stay with me, because another important quality often strengthens relationships in a surprisingly quiet way. Another recurring pattern is the ability to let small issues remain small. This does not mean pretending problems do not exist or ignoring concerns that truly matter. Instead, it means understanding that not every minor frustration needs to become a major emotional discussion. Many avoidant individuals appreciate partners who do not turn every small disagreement into a serious conflict. At the same time, healthy relationships also recognize the risk of staying silent about everything. Small frustrations can quietly build up over time if they are never addressed. The real balance comes from knowing which moments deserve attention and which moments are better left alone. Strong relationships often grow because both people learn when to speak and when to simply move forward without creating unnecessary emotional intensity. This prevents the relationship from becoming a constant cycle of correction and criticism. Another quality that often creates emotional security is the ability to give someone space while remaining emotionally consistent. At first, these two ideas may sound opposite, but together they create remarkable stability. Giving space means respecting someone's need to think, recharge, or process without adding pressure. Consistency means remaining emotionally available instead of disappearing completely. But that's only the beginning, because this balance often becomes one of the strongest foundations of trust. Healthy space sounds something like, "Take the evening if you need it. We can talk tomorrow." That single message communicates two important things at once. It respects independence while also reassuring the other person that the connection is still there. For someone with avoidant tendencies, this combination can feel incredibly calming. It removes the fear that closeness will become overwhelming, while also removing the fear that distance will lead to abandonment. Over time, this creates a relationship that feels predictable, steady, and emotionally safe. Another quality that often stands out is a quiet confidence in facing life's uncertainties. This is not about acting fearless or pretending to have every answer. In fact, arrogance usually creates the opposite effect because it feels rigid and emotionally distant. What often builds trust is a calm confidence mixed with flexibility. It is the mindset that says, "I don't know exactly what will happen, but I believe I can handle whatever comes next." Whether it involves changing careers, exploring new opportunities, or adjusting plans along the way, this attitude demonstrates resilience rather than perfection. Many avoidant individuals naturally try to maintain control over emotions, vulnerability, timing, and outcomes because control feels emotionally protective. Seeing someone remain steady without needing complete certainty quietly introduces another possibility. They begin to witness that uncertainty does not automatically create chaos. Don't miss this part, because one of the strongest forms of connection often begins with something much simpler than people expect. Many avoidant individuals respond deeply to emotional validation. When they finally express something personal or vulnerable, the first thing they usually need is not advice, correction, or problem solving. They need to feel understood. A simple acknowledgement of what they are experiencing often creates more trust than immediately trying to fix the situation. It sends the message that their emotions are accepted instead of judged. That emotional safety often encourages greater openness over time. Another important pattern is the ability to speak honestly when it truly matters. This is not about criticizing every mistake or correcting every opinion. Constant criticism usually pushes people further away. Instead, many avoidant individuals appreciate a partner who is willing to be truthful in a calm, respectful way, even when the conversation feels uncomfortable. Honest feedback delivered with kindness often builds far more trust than avoiding difficult conversations altogether. The key is balance. Speak honestly when it matters, but do not turn every moment into a lesson or a debate. What comes next may surprise you, because one of the most overlooked parts of healthy relationships has very little to do with the avoidant person at all. Another important quality is maintaining your own identity inside the relationship. Many people gradually become so focused on supporting an avoidant partner that they stop sharing their own experiences, thoughts, and goals. They ask questions, listen carefully, and offer encouragement, but slowly stop talking about themselves. Over time, their own presence begins to fade from the relationship. Healthy connection requires both people to remain visible, share your interests, talk about your day, express your ideas, challenges, dreams, and opinions. A balanced relationship is built when both individuals continue growing as complete people, rather than allowing one person's emotional world to become the center of everything. Maintaining your own voice creates mutual respect, healthier communication, and stronger emotional balance for both partners. The final insight is the one many people overlook. Lasting relationships are rarely built by trying to become exactly what another person needs. They grow when two people bring honesty, stability, respect, and authenticity into the connection, while allowing each other enough space to remain fully themselves. Another pattern appears again and again in relationship experiences. A healthy relationship cannot remain one-sided without eventually creating imbalance. You are not only there to observe, encourage, or support your partner's life. You also have your own experiences, opinions, challenges, dreams, and personal growth. When you begin sharing your own world more openly, something important changes. The relationship becomes mutual again. You are no longer simply listening from the sidelines. You become an equal participant in the connection. Interestingly, many avoidant individuals seem to respond better when the relationship feels balanced instead of revolving around only one person. There is another important layer to this as well. Avoidant individuals often do not enjoy being placed on a pedestal. While admiration can certainly feel good, excessive admiration sometimes creates unexpected pressure. It can feel as though they are expected to live up to an impossible standard or risk disappointing someone they care about. Even when that is not the intention, it may still feel that way emotionally. In some cases, this reaction may be connected to earlier experiences where expectations felt overwhelming. Instead of feeling appreciated, they begin feeling watched, evaluated, or responsible for another person's emotional stability. That is why equality matters so much. Neither person should feel above or below the other. Relationships tend to function best when both people stand on equal ground. Stay with me, because another overlooked quality quietly builds trust over time. Another important trait is creating an atmosphere free from unnecessary judgment. Many avoidant individuals become more willing to open up when they believe they can express themselves without immediately being criticized or labeled. Even subtle judgment can quickly encourage emotional withdrawal. On the other hand, when they sense that their thoughts and feelings can exist without immediate correction, they often remain more emotionally present. That feeling of acceptance creates psychological safety, and psychological safety is one of the strongest foundations for lasting connection. Another powerful dynamic is something that can simply be called shared new experiences. This means doing unfamiliar things together. It does not require expensive trips or dramatic adventures. It can be trying a new restaurant, learning a skill together, visiting a different place, or exploring something neither person has experienced before. The activity itself is less important than the shared experience. New experiences temporarily interrupt old relationship patterns. Instead of repeating familiar disagreements or predictable emotional roles, both people become focused on discovery. They are experiencing something together in the present instead of replaying the past. That shift often brings fresh energy into the relationship, but that's only the beginning, because these shared moments can quietly change how two people relate to each other. Over time, many long-term relationships naturally fall into fixed roles. One person becomes the one who pursues conversations, the other becomes the one who creates distance. One partner expresses emotions openly, while the other quietly processes everything internally. Eventually, these patterns can begin to feel permanent. Shared experiences interrupt that cycle. They create moments where neither person is trapped inside an old role. Instead of repeating familiar emotional habits, both people become active participants in something unfolding right now. For avoidant individuals, this can be especially meaningful. Emotional intensity sometimes feels overwhelming, particularly when every interaction revolves around unresolved issues or difficult conversations. Shared activities gently shift attention away from emotional pressure and toward cooperation. Instead of sitting inside heavy discussions, both people work together, explore together, or simply enjoy the present moment together. That small shift often lowers defensiveness. Curiosity begins replacing self-protection because attention is focused outward rather than inward. In those moments, closeness becomes associated with enjoyment instead of emotional pressure. Gradually, connection begins feeling lighter, more relaxed, and easier to maintain. Don't miss this part, because everything discussed so far starts coming together into one larger picture. When you step back and view these patterns together, a consistent theme begins to appear. Emotional balance, honest communication, a hopeful outlook, respectful conversations, appreciating effort instead of demanding perfection, knowing which problems deserve attention and which ones can simply be released, giving space while remaining dependable, facing uncertainty with quiet confidence, validating emotions before offering solutions, speaking honestly when necessary, maintaining your own identity instead of losing yourself in the relationship, treating each other as equals, creating an atmosphere free from judgment, exploring new experiences together. Each quality contributes something different, yet together they build an environment where emotional safety becomes possible. Notice that none of these behaviors rely on control, pressure, perfection, or emotional extremes. They create stability instead of tension. They encourage openness instead of fear. Healthy relationships are not created by trying to become flawless or by attempting to change another person's attachment style. Lasting relationships grow from the environment two people consistently create together. What comes next may be the most important idea of all, because it explains why some relationships continue growing while others slowly lose their foundation. Relationships are shaped far more by repeated patterns than by isolated moments. Every interaction either strengthens emotional safety or increases emotional threat. When two people consistently create an atmosphere where both feel respected, accepted, and emotionally secure, something powerful begins to happen naturally. Defensiveness becomes less necessary. Openness becomes easier. Connection starts feeling like a choice instead of a responsibility or a survival strategy. Strong relationships do not thrive because one person constantly sacrifices their own needs or works harder than the other. They grow because both individuals are able to remain authentic without abandoning themselves or trying to control each other's behavior. Neither person has to shrink to preserve closeness, and neither person has to force the relationship to feel secure. That is where real stability begins, not through perfection, not through flawless communication, not through never making mistakes. It develops through consistency, self-awareness, mutual respect, and enough emotional space for both people to remain fully themselves. In the end, the healthiest relationships are not the ones where nothing ever goes wrong. They are the ones where both people feel safe enough to stay present, stay honest, keep learning, and continue choosing each other even when life becomes imperfect. That quiet sense of safety is often the strongest foundation a relationship can ever have.